Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. Been a while since I've made a video, but I've been obsessed with paper magic. I've been to the local game store 2 times already this week, and then I'm gonna go again tomorrow. But here, let's do a recap of the first Magic the Gathering paper event I've joined in my life. A commander party, as it is in the title, is not usually a big deal, but for me this was a big step. Again, as personal background, I played in grade school starting in 4th edition, so white border cards feel extra nostalgic for me. Then I was out of it for a long time until I played Duels of the Planeswalkers around 2013 because I missed Magic, and here it was very conveniently available on an iPad. And then I dropped that until Arena came out on iOS around 2020 because I missed Magic again. And I started buying paper cards for the first time in 2 decades, in the form of pre-release packs. I've made a few videos of that, because they came with codes for packs in Arena. And then I made a paper magic friend here in Japan earlier this year, and finally joined this event here in Japan. And I'm stressing here in Japan because I think this report, and hopefully future reports, can provide some insight into the differences between how Japanese and Western players approach the game. I have read a lot and watched a lot about English speakers and their experiences with Commander, which is an odd duck of a format because it's quite fluid in players' expectations of power levels and house rules, and how casual the game is, and how social the game is, and how much politicking plays a part, and how much of the game is storytelling. I had all that in mind playing with these Japanese folks, and I was looking to compare how their approach would differ. Of course, this was just one night in one local game store, so I can't speak for the whole of the nation, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But hopefully I can gather experiences over the coming years and paint a picture of Japan. But what is a commander party? I had to infer this from simply joining the thing, but this was themed for Bloomburrow. Had handouts like this old frame heirloom sword, very cool, and in English. I was grateful for that. And a special roulette game rules thing. We played the last game of the night of that, and that was pretty wild. But the event started around 7:30 Saturday night, and my friend and I stayed until 11:30, and we got in 6 or 7 games, if I remember. And based on what I've seen online from English-speaking players, that should already be setting off alarms. One of the biggest complaints I see about Commander is games taking 2 or 3 hours, and individual turns taking 10 or 20 minutes. The games I played were 45 minutes to an hour each, and individual turns rarely went over 2 minutes each. The turns and games actually were so fast that I felt pressure to speed up myself, and I misplayed a bunch of stuff and I missed a bunch of triggers because I was in a hurry to end my turn and not hold up the table. Also, a lot of that was just me being nervous, playing paper magic for the first time since grade school. Part of the reason why the turns were so quick was because everybody's super familiar with their cards and decks and play lines, and also because everyone pretty much knew everyone else's cards, except for really obscure cards or brand new cards. One person had a Fallout deck and explained rad counters, and then another had an Assassin's Creed deck and explained their Assassin Commander. Also, there was pretty much zero politicking. People attacked who it was most convenient, the biggest threats were removed, and nobody protested or tried to get out of anything. They just nodded, unless they played some kind of interaction. I admit I complained when my Strixhaven Stadium was destroyed for the 3rd time, and they were all well, we have to get rid of it or you'll win, and of course, they were right. It was almost a CEDH mindset. Disclaimer, I've never played CEDH myself, but it was we just played the cards we had to win, we made the quote-unquote right plays, there was no holding back trying to create a fair or even environment where we were attempting to be casual and non-competitive. Speaking of Strixhaven Stadium, I can talk about what I played. Just 2 decks, a Rigo Strixhaven Stadium deck with lots of evasive little guys to draw me cards and get Strixhaven points to win, and a Subira group slug deck with, again, lots of little guys, but this time with various damage over time effects. I didn't win any games because I'll talk about how powerful some of the other decks were, but I was pretty satisfied with how both of my decks performed. They quickly made big board states. I was attacking and drawing cards. I didn't really get my stadium very far along, but otherwise I was pretty satisfied with how my decks performed. I performed better than some other people who kind of didn't get off the ground in any sense. One thing that was odd, I guess, was that I played nearly next to no interaction, even though I had a pretty good selection of it in each of my decks. I think I countered like one spell in those 6 or 7 games. I removed threats 2 or 3 times, and I protected my own stuff with like hexproof or indestructible 0 times. That was frustrating because it made me look like I was unprepared to play at instant speed, even though my decks were moderately prepared. Either I had the wrong cards for the situation, or I was just drawing lots of creatures. I don't think I'm going to add more interaction just based on that night, because frankly I do think I have enough. Next we can talk about the games and what other people used. I played every game with my friend that I came with, and he does not mess around. His 2 decks are very strong. One is a Udigal deck, which gets started quickly and does direct damage to everyone, and the other is a Droira deck, whose plan is basically get out Omniscience, blow up everyone's lands, and then put out a bunch of Eldrazi. Based on what I've seen from Western players, mass land destruction especially is a faux pas, but my friend doesn't care, and the other people we played took it in stride, mostly. Yes, they understood the game was basically over after the mass land destruction, but no one was visibly upset. They were more just like turning and looking forward to the next game, which was going to be coming soon, and it always came soon. My friend never did the mass land destruction just to make the game, go again for another hour as we were trying to rebuild. The end was always very close after those spells. To my immediate left, there were a couple guys that kind of went in and out that were playing decks I was guessing were at a power level closer to mine. They use like this Groll Goblin, this Groll Ogre, the Fallout collaboration deck, the Assassin's Creed collaboration deck. But diagonally across from me was another super powerful player. He had a big old box with like maybe, 10 decks. And most games basically came down to him versus my friend. He played like Elish Norn, he played Urza from the pre-constructed deck, and most notably that new flipping red commander, I forget his name, but his highlight of that deck was looping Jessica's Will through Underworld Breach until he hit Wheel of Fortune, and then we all just kind of scooped at that point. But as he was going through this loop, we were all just kind of sitting there. I guess nobody had interaction to interrupt the loop. But from what I've read online, at that point, some people would declare, I'm the winner because I have this loop, which is eventually going to win the game. But here, we played out the whole thing, we all watched it. I think it took nearly 10 minutes, but everyone was very patient to watch it go off. But yeah, between my friend and then the guy on the diagonal, I saw a bunch of legendary expensive cards like OG Dual Lands, Mana Crypts, Mana Vaults, Wheels of Fortune. It was very cool to see these cards in person and getting played. Besides the speed with which everyone was playing, I was most struck by how much visible pride everyone had in their collections, from their carrying case to their playmat, from their sleeves to their tokens, from their physical cards to their strategies and interactions of those cards. I can't say I'm as proud of my stuff because I haven't put as much effort into it, but how my cards play, I'm happy to talk about that. But I did try to put in as many old frame cards as possible into my decks, and they noticed that, so that made me happy. And then after a game, folks would enjoy pulling out notable cards from their decks and explaining how they would work. And yeah, it was a very friendly, fun atmosphere, even if my friend stomped on everyone. But yeah, it was a very game-centric atmosphere. There was next to no socializing. I don't think anyone even asked anyone's name. And then the last game of the night was the Bloomburrow Roulette. I enjoyed it because I like chaos mechanics once in a while, but the other members seemed to be lukewarm on it. They didn't really treat it like it was a real game. But my friend had yet again a dominant board state after nuking all of our lands, but he was killed on damage from the roulette, so it ended up being me and the diagonal guy with 1 land each, no creatures, and single-digit life. That was a tense few turns, but he eventually got me with an artifact creature with protection from all colors, so I couldn't block his combat damage, and he took me down. So yeah, I guess you could say that my best finish was there, second place. But yeah, based on this first night, culturally it seems like the Japanese are less social and less political, more fixed on just the cards and the rules, and playing more briskly, either from lack of extraneous talk or actions, or maybe hyperfamiliarity with their decks and cards. And proxies were not really a subject until my friend brought it up, but his kind of like way of doing proxies was maybe unconventional. But like for his deck, he did not have the right color of the OG dual lands, and so he was like, I'm going to put in these other OG dual lands. And so if they come up in the game, just pretend that this taiga is actually a scrub land. That's a power move of a proxy if I ever saw one. But yeah, from my personal point of view, I had a lot of fun, good atmosphere, and lots of games. But I also do recognize that my decks are much lower power than the two more powerful people that I played against. I don't mind, being at that point, because I'm still in a state where I'm happy to be playing any paper Magic. But I think eventually I'm going to want to make a stronger deck to better compete with my friend, or get him to power down, or maybe sometimes play without him. I do want to keep trying against him, however, because I feel like if my removal is available at the right time, then I might have a chance to win against him. And then as for other players, I need to spend more time just playing more people, more times, so I get a sense of the power level of the area. And then, when I get more comfortable there, maybe I will consider joining competitive tournaments, heavens help me. But yeah, just to touch on like some of the cultural elements that I saw. Like, Japanese nerds are painfully awkward and asocial, even compared to like Western nerds, I would say. Like, we can see this play out in Japanese mobile games, where they have like a PvP mode. Like, it's not true live PvP, like, Fortnite or something. There's like an extra layer of like distance, or like there's the computer in between, where you like set up a team and then somebody else will play like an automated version of that team. But it's to sort of like kind of get around like the social anxiety, Like for a lot of Japanese folks, knowing that there's another live person on the other hand is kind of stressful. In Japan, there's a very strong culture about like, thinking about other people, not wanting to annoy people or waste their time, that kind of a thing. And so I think that's part of the reason why Elder Dragon Highlander Commander is not as popular in Japan, because it does lend itself more to a social atmosphere, more politics. It's a multiplayer game rather than just a 1v1, which is very straightforward. Many Japanese people stay away from EDH just so they don't have to engage with people, essentially. They don't want to, manage other people's feelings, they just want to engage with the game systems and the game mechanics. And then my friend kind of confirmed this, in our conversations in the days after. Like, he said that he was very aware that his decks are super powerful. He explained to me that this is what he knows. He actually said to me that he doesn't know how to make a less powerful deck or how to power down his current deck. And then part of that is because his playgroup that he comes from is all at that level and all in that mindset, where they're like, if you don't like what I'm playing, why aren't you removing it? That kind of a thing. But yeah, he is considering maybe a lower powered deck or two. He was even like talking about like making a commander deck only of cards legal in Pioneer, for example. But yeah, as I said before, like, I feel like I'm at the beginning of a journey here. I've been playing a lot of Magic up to now, but this is a kind of a new road that I'm going down. And I'm not in any hurry to like, run down that road. I'll take it step by step, and hopefully I can record those steps here on my YouTube channel. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.